Think I'm live. I know nobody's in here yet, but I'm just gonna say thank you guys for supporting me in this. Thank you guys for joining me in these videos and having these dialogues with me. I appreciate it. You know, a lot of you are just learning. Some of you are just coming back, or practicing for a long time and trying to find the right place to be, and that's kind of where I'm at. I've been in this faith for a long time, and I'm just trying to find the right place for myself to be. And a lot of groups and other kindreds and things like that, they're not exactly the right fit for everyone. And I'm not saying that what I'm creating here is the right fit for anyone, or that I have all the right answers, or that I know everything, because I don't. I'm a student just as much as everybody else is a student. And I'm just here to try to share as best as I can what I'm trying to do and what I kind of know and understand. I will always be growing. I will always be learning, and that path will never stop for me, as I'm sure it won't stop for most of you. The path is always going. There's always something new to learn. There's always something more that we can take from all of this. Thank you, Dalton, for joining. I see you popped in there. So I'm just saying, nobody knows everything. And if there's somebody out there that's telling you that they know everything, that one path is the correct path, then they're feeding you a crock. Okay? There's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of people that have years and years of practice with this, years of knowledge, have studied, have actually gotten into the dirt and dug with their own fingernails to get this information to us. And so you have good sources and you have bad sources. So anybody out there just wanting you to know, be safe. Take everything with a grain of salt and make your own assessment. Make your own judgment on the information that people have put into books for you to ingest. People like me are making videos to share with you. We might be wrong. We might blatantly know that we're wrong and that we're lying to you and things like that, but we're just trying to get you to buy into whatever we're trying to sell. So go forward with caution. Odin would teach you that as well in the Havamal. Wisdom is the number one thing that you can take with you, and caution around every corner. Thank you for joining me tonight, Adrian. Thank you, Dalton, again. Thank you both for consistently being here. I appreciate your guys' presence every time. Prior to you guys joining, I was just kind of telling you guys that I don't know everything. Nobody does. You can go back and you can look at that whenever you need to. Next thing I just want to kind of say, I kind of been a little quiet the last week with the kindred, other things like that. I've taken this time to just kind of spend more time with my family, focus on my family. But I'm also having, a little bit of troubles at work and other things. So I've just been in a different place mentally, been trying to, work out some things before this new year comes. Trying to find out, maybe I need to transition my workflow and my place of business. So I think it might need to transition in a different direction. So we'll see what happens, where that goes. But it is 2026. It is January 2nd. We've entered into this new year. We're coming into a brand new cycle, and it can only go up, and if we keep that mentality as a community and in our personal lives, then 2026 is only going to bring you and me and everybody that we care for great things. So also with that being said, I bought myself a little doodad. I know you guys can't see it, but it's holding my phone up right now. I've just been kind of propping it up the last couple of times. Sarah, thank you for joining. Those of you that have joined a little bit late, feel free to go back and just kind of see where I kind of started this video off. But I appreciate you guys for being here. Bought this little doodad, like I'm saying, so it's kind of holding my phone up. My lady got me a really cool microphone, so as soon as I get my computer fixed, I'll set up my microphone and my computer, and I think the quality of these videos will be a lot better moving forward. Also, just going to shout out, here in Spokane, you have a place called Local Knits. I'm not getting paid to shout them out or anything like that, but little Christmas present that I received, this hat and this sweater. It's actually made out of clothes that belong to my mother. And Local Knits took those clothes and put them into a hat and a sweater for me on request from my lady. And these are beautiful, beautiful works of clothing. And my mom passed, and I get to kind of wear her and continue to have her with me with these items. So I think that is beautiful. Local Knits down on Garland. If you guys want to go check them out, I'm just giving them a shout out. They don't even know I exist. They don't even know that I'm doing that. But just love the work that they did for me. Love the fact that, my mom's clothes are in these items. But enough of that. Tonight, we're going to talk about some holidays. We're going to talk about some creatures of the lore and of legend and myth. And we're going to talk about some books and some good things to read. I do apologize if there's some slow connection or you guys keep getting dropped out of the conversation. Hopefully, it buffers out and things kind of work out and you guys can follow along as I'm going. But anything you miss, I know that when the video is finished, that you'll be able to watch the whole video front to back without any problems. So if you're missing too much, don't worry about it. You can come back and watch it again. I do try to download these videos so that if they ever get deleted, I can send them to people if they want to know, or I can repost them in the future. So that's kind of one of my plans. But as usual, I give myself a little dialogue, write these things out for myself so that I don't get distracted and ramble on like I've done for the last almost 10 minutes now. I got so much information in my head all the time that I just spew it all out and will sometimes lose the point of the original conversation. So with that being said, I give myself these little dialogues so that I can stay on track and so that we don't get lost and my thoughts come out in a more formatted position, I guess, or however you want to say it. But anyways, let's get started. We're going to talk about some holidays. We're going to talk about some major holidays and some minor holidays and what is historically attested. Throughout all of my work tonight, I'm going to have sources that I've taken this information from. So it's not just Isaac just saying whatever and telling you these are what holidays are and these are what creatures exist and whatnot. I have sources. There's a lot of work out there that you guys can go and reference to after tonight. I'm also going to give a list of books, and I'll probably post several things about books and reading material. I posted a picture the other day about some of the books that I have. I have them sitting next to me right now. We'll talk about those a little bit towards the end as well. And so there will be a lot of reading material that you guys can go out, look them up, get them off Amazon, go to Spotify. There's audiobooks out there, things like that. You can go and get these, some of them virtually free, others pretty but Amazon can get these books delivered to you overnight, a lot of them. But But anyways, without further ado, I want to talk about the Norse holidays we observe, why we observe them, and most importantly, what we can actually prove from history versus what is modern reconstruction. Our goal here is honesty, respect for the sources and living tradition, not pretending to know, not pretending we know more than we do. When I say we tonight, I don't just mean me, I mean all of you watching, all of you that have joined this group. Don't try to pretend to know more than you do. And don't try to obscure any of the knowledge that we have. The knowledge is there for us to go and find. Use your source material. Share the information with us as it's already been shared to us. None of us are archaeologists. None of us are scholars. We're not going out spending 20, 30 years actually digging in sites, actually writing about the history of this stuff. So don't pretend like you are. You're just learning just as much as I am, just as much as the man or the woman next to you is. So just keep that humbleness and that honesty when you share your information with us in this kindred. So, when I say a holiday is historically attested, I mean we can point to actual source materials, sagas, law codes, chronicles, or archaeology that tells us it existed in pre-Christian Norse or Germanic culture. When details are missing, we don't invent them and call them ancient. We label reconstruction as reconstruction. And so, with that being said, we have a handful, very, very small handful, of major holidays that are well documented. To start off with, Yule. Yule. This is our midwinter celebrations. The most important and best documented Norse festival is Yule. Okay. Sources for this, Heimskringla by Snorri Sturluson and Haknar Saga Kotha. Also, we have medieval Norwegian law codes that talk about Yule. Yule was a multi-day midwinter festival marked by feasting, sacrifice, ale drinking, oath-taking, and community gathering. It honored gods like Odin, Freyr, and Njord. Not exclusively them, but those would be three of the major deities that were worshipped during the Yule time. What matters here is that Yule was not a single night, and it wasn't quiet. It was loud, communal, and binding. Okay. Next, we have Mudranit, which is the start of Yule, otherwise known as Mother's Night. Mother's Night is the only Yule night we can actually name. If anybody out there is trying to tell you that somebody else has the names to all the nights of Yule or anything like that, they're not telling you the truth. There's one historical night out of all of the nights of Yule that has a name, and that is Mudranit. That is Mother's Night. That'd be roughly December 20th, December 21st. My main source for this is going to be from Bede, De Temporum Ration from the 8th century. Bede did very thorough history during the 8th century into what was being practiced and who was practicing these things. It marks the beginning of Yule and honored mothers, female ancestors, and protective spirits. Again, this is Mother's Night. It marked the beginning of Yule and honored mothers, female ancestors, and protective spirits. This tells us that ancestor veneration, especially maternal, was central by midwinter observance. Next, we are going to have Vetranart. And some of these words I might not be saying right. I don't speak Icelandic, I don't speak Norwegian or Scandinavian, and most of us don't. So don't hold it against me and don't hate me. I'm doing the best I can. Vetranart, winter nights. Vetranart marks the beginning of winter. And my references for this would be saga references multiple times, and Icelandic calendars actually have this posted as well. I see Katie, you joined. Thank you for joining tonight, Katie. Feel free to go back at the end of the video and catch up on anything that we've talked about tonight. But talking about winter nights, this was a seasonal turning point when sacrifices were made, especially to Freyr and the Disir, asking for protection through the winter. And again, if we don't know what the Disir are female spirits, female ancestors, and the representation of the feminine, period. The feminine exists in all things, just like the masculine exists in all things. Next, we have Alfablut. Alfablut is one of the most interesting holidays because it was private. The main source for this, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but this is Ostra Farar Visir. Okay. It was a household right to elves or ancestral spirits. Outsiders were not welcome. This tells us Norse religion wasn't only public, it was deeply domestic. What we do know about Alfabluts is very limited. Anybody tries to tell you otherwise, ask them for source material. And if they have an extensive amounts of source material more than me, I would like to see that. I want to know as well. But as far as I know right now, there's not a whole lot of information about Alfabluts. It is a very private thing. It would be just you and your family. There would be no outsiders, no friends, no neighbors coming over for this. This is something that you would do in your own home, in private, to honor the elves and other, ancestral spirits, right? Next, we have Disablut. Disablut, I'm sure you're already guessing, honored the Disir, the female ancestral and protective spirits. Kind of spoke about the Disir just a minute ago. My main sources for this would be Ynglinga Saga and Hervarar Saga. It was tied to protection, prosperity, and the health of the community. Again, I say this a lot, but from the women, all things grow. And in our traditions, in our faith, we believe this. Women are sacred. They are never going to be below anybody. If anything, put them above you, But these women, they walk equal to us in life. Your ancestors walk side by side with you today, right now. Your dead relatives, things like that, men and women both, they're still here. You can still talk to them. You can still call to them. You can still honor them and leave them a place at the table for a meal. You know what I mean? And things like the Alfablut and the Disablut, they solidify this. And there's plenty sources to also solidify this and to prove it fact. We honor our ancestors and we hold them to the Most High. They are sacred in everything that we do. But moving on. Coming into, like some summer holidays, things like that, you would have the Sigurblot or Victory Bluts. Sigurblot was held in early summer. And again, my source for this would be Ynglinga Saga. It sought victory, success, and favorable outcomes, especially for travel, warfare, and new ventures. This is a blot that usually would take place right before people were heading out to travel, heading out to raid, heading out to, do what they were able to do as soon as the ice was thawing and summer was coming into their lives. And they prayed for victory and all things that they did, and that's kind of what we see in those bloats. Coming next, we have Midsummer, or Midsummer. And Midsummer was recognized as an important seasonal point. We can see this in the saga allusions, archaeological seasonal evidence as well. We don't have ritual scripts, but we know fire, light, and fertility symbols were very important. So a little bit limited on what we do know about Midsummer. And again, every kindred is going to be different. They're going to practice these things differently. And there might be some other historical things that we can gather to kind of tell us a little bit about what the Midsummer festivals were like. But what we really know is that there was a lot of fire, light, and fertility symbols going on there. Next, we're going to go into Haustrablut. This happens as like a harvest festival, as like a early autumn. Haustrablut marked the harvest and preparation for winter. I find this for my sources and saga references. This was about gratitude and survival, thanking the land before the dark half of the year came. So this would be a perfect time for us to bring our harvested goods around with the community, share what we grew throughout the summer, and prepare for the harsh winters that would come, especially back then. Death was just a part of life. And if you failed to harvest enough, that could spark doom for you, your community, and everybody around you. And so these festivals, all of them, all of the holidays that we know of that we have been recorded and saved throughout time, they're practical. They're very practical. They are about coming together and celebrating for practical reasons. Harvest, preparing for winter, things like that. Honoring those that did die throughout the year, that we still believe are right next to us, that walk with us every day. So those 8 holidays that I listed off, those are the most major, most historically trackable and written down holidays that we know of, okay? And that goes Yule, all right? Yule being the most historical and known holiday that we know of, followed by Mudrunit, Mother's Night, right? And then you got Winter's Nights, or Vetranit. And then coming into Alphablut, Dieselblut, and then Sigurblut, and Midsummer Festival, and then followed by the Hastrabluts. So those 8, those are the major 8 holidays that are historically evident in our past. But that's not to say that those are the only holidays that we know of, right? So, moving on, we have smaller, less known holidays or traditions. Erfi, okay, or also known as funeral bloats. Funeral feasts were religious, legal, and communal. We can find this in multiple sagas. We can find this written on rune stones. They honored the dead and marked inheritance and continuity. Okay? And obviously they would hold these when it arose. People died, we would celebrate their life, we would celebrate their death, and we'd give them a feast, and we'd honor them in any way that we knew how. And then you have thing-linked blutes. Blutes were often held alongside lingual assemblies. So a thing is when, usually once a year, the communities in the region would gather together, discuss law and code, and go over discrepancies from one farmer to another farmer. This guy stole my cow. What do I do about it? This man's son bedded down my daughter. What do we do about it? You know, just things like that. Just things that are going on in the communities. They'd be addressed at these thing blutes. And our sources for this are law codes and saga references. We can kind of track that like fairly easily back and back. But, you know, religion and law were not separate in Norse culture. They were one and the same. You know, your religion teaches you to live with honor. Your law teaches you to live with honor. Next, you have sea and boat bloats. These would be maritime communities honored Nord before and after sailing seasons. We can find sources for this in the sagas yet again. These would be local and practical, not centralized festivals. Blessing ships before they go out on long voyages. Honoring the sea and Njord once the fjord is breaking open from the ice and we're getting ready to be able to go out and fish again and sail the seas. They'd hold festivals for the ships because the ships, they were living creatures to us as well. It's called animism, believing that everything has some form of life in it. And so we want to honor that life. And we want to honor the work that these things do for us. Our tools, our ships, they do things for us. And we should honor that. So then we would go into like agricultural rites, Frey-focused bloats. Freyr received offerings connected to fertility and harvest. We can see this in the Gisla saga, Angmander, Thetir Dietz, I might be saying that all wrong. These rites were sometimes highly local and domestic. So we know that even in some of the minor traditions and holidays that we have left, that these people, they celebrated their dead. They gave them proper funeral burials. They celebrated their life. They celebrated their death with feasts and partying. And, even coming together for law assemblies and things like that. It was a party. It was feasts. We're celebrating our community and being with each other. And, there might be some discrepancies amongst, clansmen and other things like that and amongst our tribe. And so we need to hash those things out in a neutral area. But there's no reason to be so rigid about everything, right? And so we kind of see that. And then, the boat bloats, like I just discussed a minute ago. We celebrated even inanimate objects, ships and tools, and we blessed them. And we can find this through many sources. So, with all of that, I just want to say, it is just as important to say what we don't know, okay? What we don't know is that there are no named 12 nights of Yule beyond Mother's Night. There's no fixed wheel of the year. There's no weekly god holidays, no racial or ethnic requirements, no single standardized calendar. Those are modern structures, and that's fine as long as we're honest. And I kind of talked about being honest before I even started getting into this. I don't know everything, and neither do any of you. We're here to share as much knowledge and to build traditions together. And in order for us to do that, we have to be honest about the information that we do know and the information that we can find, and then we share that. You can't fill in the blanks with whatever edict you think is right. Your path is your path, though. So it's like you do what you need to do for you, but at the same time, don't try to force it on anybody else. For example, I like to give a reason to every night of Yule. Okay, but that reason changes every year for me. I come up with a different one. We start with Mother's Night, and then night 2, night 3, night 4. I talk about different things that we could be doing. It's not something that you have to do. Maybe night 3 of Yule means something different for you. And you hold true to that every year. That's okay. But it's also okay for you to have your own traditions. They don't have to be everybody's traditions, right? So again, there's no fixed way. There's no one path. And just try to be honest about what you're doing. I know, honestly, that there is no name for every night of Yule, right? But I still like to celebrate Yulebach and set up Yule goats around the house and give gifts on that day and every day of Yule, really. But you get what I'm saying. We're going to talk about Reconstruction. which the more you get into this, the more you're going to hear about Reconstruction. And I will always try to be very clear about what Reconstruction is and what Reconstruction isn't. So XYZ is very historical, very traditional. We have sources that are going to back this up. There's no question on these facts, right? And then a reconstruction is like, well, A, B, and C are something that we as a kindred here have reconstructed to the best of our ability to kind of fill in those gaps. Other kindreds do this, other people do this all over the world. So reconstruction is not lying, it's how living religions survive. And that is the goal for any kindred out there today, is to keep this faith going so that 100 years, 200 years from now, there's something left behind. Okay? We reconstruct to teach, to gather, to heal, and to create rhythm. But we do it openly. Nine Realms Hearth honors the gods, the ancestors, and the land without pretending certainty where none exists. We build forward with integrity, scholarship, and hospitality. That honesty is our strength. So, just to kind of recap what we've gone over so far, we have very limited information about what holidays are left. So to me, it is very important that we celebrate those major holidays as best as we can. We gather as often as we can. And after all this, I'm going to post a calendar for all of us, okay? I'm going to try to get my calendar finished. I'm going to post a calendar so that we can see the holidays that I have put on that list for us. I'm going to try to get us together for bloats and symbols. Anything that I have reconstructed and anything historically that I have found. For example, Thorablot. We're going to try to do that on the 13th. History varies on what Thorablot is, when it took place, things like that. To me, it's from the 13th on. So about midway through the month of January, any time after that, we can celebrate Thor. And we'll go into that in the future, why we would celebrate Thor, what is important about it, and why we choose to do it earlier in the year. And again, other kindreds might see this differently than me, but I am just trying to share with you and grow with you a working kindred, a working hearth, and traditions that we can all get behind. It's not just a one-way avenue here. All of you are welcome to give me input, add what, hey, I learned about this the other day. Is there any way that we can incorporate it into what we're doing? And we'll look at it as a group, and we'll talk about it. And, you know, if there's historical evidence supporting what you found, then I'm more than glad to add it. If it's something more reconstructed or something more personal from you, then we'll try to get the group together and see if the whole of the group kind of can get behind it. And that way, this kindred is evolving through your efforts and my efforts. I don't ever want this to just be Isaac's way. That's not what it's about. We are forming a community. Me and you. We're forming a community. I'm not your leader. I'm not your dictator. I'm not your king. Okay? I would like for you guys to someday view me as a Gothi. I don't expect anybody to call me a Gothi. I don't expect anybody to believe that I'm a Gothi. Right now, you could even view it as something that's laughable to you. I don't care. I just want to strive and work to change that viewpoint for all of us in this community so that I can be the best type of Gothi for all of us. But again, this is a two-way street here. This community is made for you, but it will evolve by you and through you. But moving on, let's talk about some creatures. There's a lot of creatures and lore and other things like that. But we're not talking about the gods themselves, but about the beings that move between them and us. The creatures, spirits, and forces that filled the world of our ancestors. These beings shaped how people understood danger, fate, land, death, and survival. They are not fairy tales. They are worldview. In Norse and Germanic paganism, the world was never just nature. Forests, water, burial mounds, hearths, and even sleep itself were inhabited. Our ancestors did not separate the physical from the spiritual. They overlapped. The beings we'll talk about fall into three broad categories, three broad roles. You have cosmic forces, land and ancestral spirits, threats that enforce order and boundaries. So, to kick us off, we're going to talk about the most widely known creatures and some of the source material I have for all of them. So, right out the gate, all of us should know what a giant is. They are known as the Jotnar. And the Jotnar were not simply monsters, they were ancient forces. Frost, fire, stone, and storm. And some of the sources that we can gather about the Jotnar come from Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda. They predate order itself. Some are enemies, some are teachers, and some are even our kin. Next, we have the Draugr. The Draugr is not a ghost. It is a body that refuses to let go. I make jokes about this all the time because if you guys don't bury me right, I swear to the gods above, I will come back as a Draugr and I will fuck with all of you. Okay, excuse the language. But my sources for my information on the Draugr come from Grettis Saga and Eyrbyggja Saga. They are physical undead tied to land, greed, or broken oaths. A warning against improper burial and unresolved life. So it's also a good reason why you should try to not pass on to the other side with a lot of regrets and fear for your death, right? We all die. You should accept that. And you should be honored when your time comes. And you should greet your death with a smile and know that you did everything that you could in this world to be the best person that you can be, you know? Otherwise, there's a chance that your soul, okay, or otherwise known as your self, might come back tainted in the form of a Draugr. Next, we have the Alfar, or the Elves. Elves were honored, feared, but honored. And our sources come from the Grimnismal, the Prose Eddas, and evidence of Alfablots. And we kind of talked about Alfablots earlier. But these creatures are tied to fertility, ancestors, and land. These creatures are not small or cute, but rather powerful and easily offended. And as we go on, we'll talk about ways that we can be kind to the elves and leave offerings for the elves. And if you feel like something's going amiss with the elves, we'll talk about how to try to rectify and correct that. Because elves can be very, very helpful in your life. Or they can steal your lighter when you need to go have a smoke. Or much, much worse than that. Next, we have the Dwalger, the Devargar, the Dwarves, right? Dwarves are the makers of fate's tools. Our sources are Voluspa and the Skadskaparmal. These are creatures, they're smiths of sacred weapons and bindings. These creatures created things like the chains that bind Fenrir. They created Odin's spear, Freyr's boar, a ship that can fold down and fit into your pocket. These guys created the most magnificent masterworks known to the Nine Realms. But if you anger these creatures, if you anger the dwarves, it is known that they could make you sick in any number of ways. So, tread carefully when encountering a dwarf. Next, dragons and worms. We have a couple of them that we're going to talk about. But dragons and worms were all over in Norse mythology, but we have a couple that are very historically tracked and prominent. First off, we're going to have Fafnir. Fafnir teaches us that greed changes what we are. And we know this from the Volsung saga, which I have right here, and Fafnismal. But Fafnir was a dwarf turned into a dragon through hoarded wealth. He was a moral creature, not just a monster. We'll get into the sagas going down the line, and in these sagas we'll eventually get to Fafnir and other things like that. But the slaying of Fafnir and the whole story involving Fafnir is one that I think all of us should know and heed carefully, because it's about your greed and how you can kind of overcome it and kind of let your greed go, in my opinion. But next, we have Fenrir. Fenrir is not evil. Fenrir is inevitable. And we know this from Voluspa and Gylfaginning. I might have said that wrong as well, but again, don't hate me. Trying my best I can. But he is known as the wolf that breaks all bindings. A lesson in fear creating the very doom it tries to avoid. Fenrir is one of the children of Loki, and the dwarves that we were just talking about a moment ago had to fasten these chains from things that don't exist so that they could bind them, because nothing in our material worlds could keep that wolf pinned down. Another one of Loki's children is Jormungandr. This is the world serpent, and the world serpent holds the world together by tension. We know this from Himiskvida and Voluspa. This kind of teaches us that, or not really teaches us, but basically Jormungandr wraps around the earth, and if he wraps too tightly, the world will break, and if he's too loose, it will all fall apart. We'll kind of get into that later, kind of talk about what I mean there. But we have physical and metaphorical reasons to believe in all of these creatures that I talk about, and some of them are metaphysical, not just metaphorical. Another dragon, or another worm that we'll talk about, is Nidhogg, or Nidhogg. Even the world tree is not untouched by decay, because this dragon rests at the roots of Yggdrasil and gnaws upon its roots and eats oathbreakers. And our sources for this are the Voluspa, Grimnismal, and he's basically known for gnawing on Yggdrasil's roots, like I said, feeding on oathbreakers and the dishonored dead. Another creature that we'll talk about, Valkyries. They do not bring death, they choose it. My sources here, horrible pronunciations here, so bear with me. But the Derad Tharledod, or no, butchered it. And then Sigurd Ifmal. I'll try to work on pronunciations. But I'll drop the sources for these later. But these are two really good sources talking about the Valkyries. and in my opinion have given me some of the best informations that I have about Valkyries. But these are battle spirits and fate walkers, neither gentle nor cruel, simply exact. And then finally, we've kind of talked about this already as well, but the Wild Hunt. I've talked about this over the last month a little bit. But when the storm rides, the dead are not far behind. And we know this through Germanic chronicles and Scandinavian folklore. A winter procession of spirits and the dead ride out through the storms of midwinter. And to witness it is an omen. To follow it is your doom. But those are some of the major creatures in folklore. They're not the only creatures in folklore, but we'll definitely talk about all of them more as time goes on. We'll talk about others as well. Some of my favorite creatures I didn't even mention in that list, but you know we'll get there. We'll talk about them. We'll break them all down some more. But some of the lesser known creatures, and a bit closer to home, if you ask me. These beings didn't live in mythic time. They lived in your house, your fields, and your sleep. The Landvitir. The Landvitir, to me, are some of the most prominent creatures to honor and venerate to. But our sources for the Landvitir comes from Heimskringla and Icelandic law codes. These are guardians of lands and borders. Some ships would remove dragon heads as to not offend them. But we'll talk about Landvitir more. Landvitir could also be like elves or Disir, or any number of spirits or, guardians of the other planes of existence. Fylgja. Some of you might have heard your luck walks ahead of you, or you might have heard the phrase your luck just walked out on you. That is actually in a reference to Old Norse proverbs, if you will, about the Fylgja, because we believe, and the Icelandic sagas back this up, but we believe that you have physical luck that can come and join with you and also leave you. So when somebody says your luck walked out on you or you ran out of luck, what they're referring to is that the creature that gave you luck, your Fylgja or your Hamingja, okay, which we'll talk about the Hamingja in a moment as well, is an actual creature of luck that was bestowing itself upon you, and sometimes they move on with their business. So your luck runs out, or your luck walks ahead of you. And again, we find this in Icelandic sagas, but this is a spirit double tied to fate, and it will often appear before death or great changes in your life. Next, we'll talk about the Hamingja. Kind of like your Fylgja. And the source for this would be the Heimskringla. But this is transferable luck and fortune. This is passed through families and leaders. So, for example, if you have a father or a grandfather or, somebody in your family that was really lucky, they could gamble and always win, things like that. They had really good Hamingja. Okay, and this could be passed on to you while they're alive or after their death. And it is said that, your Hamingja kind of sticks with a certain family and will just kind of follow them through their ancestry. Next, the Mara. The nightmare sits on your chest. Have you ever heard that, or if you ever had sleep paralysis? This is what we're talking about. We're talking about the mare, the nightmare. And we see this in linguistic evidence and folklore mostly. But this explains sleep paralysis and night terrors. It is a deeply ancient belief. It's not just Norse pagan. It's not just Germanic. a lot of cultures around the world have their own version of a mare or a nightmare. And these creatures come and infect your mind when you're sleeping, and they give you horrible visions and these nightmares, or they'll give you sleep paralysis, and they'll sit on your chest, or they'll lurk about your room, and other things like that. Next, you may know them as gnomes, but some of us refer to them as the Nis, or most commonly in my experience so far, the Tomte. Honor your home or it will turn on you. We know about these because of farm lore and folklore, but these creatures are guardians of hearths and livestock. They can be kind when respected, but cruel when neglected. Anytime you move into a new home, it's always really good to cleanse it, bless it, and ask permission to actually even live there or occupy this space. Because some of these creatures, they're very shy and they're very territorial. And so you move into a home or you come and occupy a space, like let's say you went to like an Airbnb for a weekend because you're vacationing with family. It might be a good idea for you to ask permission to stay there for the weekend so that you don't offend anybody. My friend Kai, he joined a little while ago. Kai and me, just the other day, were actually talking about how he thinks that maybe some spirits are messing with him. And I brought up the fact that, well, maybe it's the Nis, maybe it's the Tomte. Did you get rid of anything that's been in the house for a long time? Did you just move into the house? And he said, well, you know what? We actually got rid of some stuff the other day. Not entirely sure, what exactly, but we got rid of stuff that was just kind of cluttering up our lives. And I was like, that could have been something that was very important to one of these creatures. And so you might just want to give an offering, apologize, and give thanks for all the things that they do for you. And again, we'll talk about these creatures more and how to honor them and what they do in our day-to-day lives. But that is the Nis and the Tomte, or if you just want to call them, gnomes. Next, we have a creature that I like, terrifying, but the Neck, or the Nakin, or the Nokken. We know about these creatures through Scandinavian folklore. They are water spirits that lure people through music. And they are a strong warning about drowning and frozen rivers, but these creatures will try to lure you to water, get you in the water, and then drown you in the most brutal way that they can. So, be safe. And don't follow weird music while on the water, okay? I think we should all know that by now. But if you don't, if you're hearing weird music out of place while near a river or on a lake, just ignore it. It has nothing to do with you. Go on with your day. Next, we have Huldra. We know about the Huldra through Scandinavian forest lore, but these are beautiful, dangerous forest beings. They teach us respect for wilderness and boundaries. Again, we'll talk more about them going forward. Next, we have the Baro, or the Whites. We know about them through Irbygja saga. They are guardians of burial mounds, and they are referred to as the dead defending their land. Next, we have what is known as the Helhest. This is a part of Danish folklore mostly, but it's been brought up in other locations as well. But these are three-legged horse of plague and death. If you were to see one of these creatures, this is an omen, not an attacker. And then to round us out, we have a few Yule beings. You have Grilla and the Yule Cat. Winter itself had teeth is kind of a phrase that we can use here. But the sources are Icelandic folklore. These creatures were enforcers of preparedness, work, and survival. And also kind of turned into children's fear stories with adult lessons intertwined into them. And I'm sure that by Next December, I'll get deeper into Grilla and her Yule Cat and things like that for all of you folks. But a little bit of a closing reflection for us. Our ancestors did not ask, is this real? They asked, how do I live rightly in a world like this? These creatures taught us respect for land, responsibility to family, honor in death, preparedness in winter, humility before fate. When we remember these beings, we remember how to walk carefully, honor deeply, and live awake. So I ask, which of these beings feels closest to our lives today, and why? So if any of you can give me a reason and list off any of these creatures that I just listed off that you think is kind of living closer to you in your day-to-day life, and why it would be important, I'd like to see that down in the comments. To me, I think that the Landvitir and the Tomte are kind of everywhere in my life. The Tomte might move things around in my house. They might make me lose something for some time. And then the Landvitir, they allow us to go and visit like places like a Bolin Pitcher here in Spokane or other locations and get to witness the beauty of these places. And the Landvitir have a big part of allowing that beauty to still be in everyday life for us. So with that, I do want to talk about just a few books real quick. I know that this video has gone on for quite some time. I do apologize, but getting a lot of good informations out here. So I'll also post a reading list, and I do want to talk about maybe a monthly reading for all of us. Yeah, no, that's okay, Dalton. I appreciate you. So you think that the Tomte are in your life? Yeah, we'll talk about that. I'll respond to everybody's comments after the video, and we'll talk about it in messaging. But I want to get us all a reading list. Recommendations from me. Obviously, any of you guys are allowed to add to this list. I don't have all the answers. I don't have every book under the sun, every tome, every scroll, every rune stone. I don't have it all. Some of you are going to have other work that I don't have. Let's share it. Let's make a list, a fully expansive list of books that we can all get into and read. Currently, right now, I have kind of made a month-by-month reading that I think that we can all get into. If you don't have the books, it's okay. I have no problem reading from these books on video. But I would also like to physically gather together, sit down, read some of these books, and just kind of get into some of this together. So to start out, this is one of my favorite books. It's really good for just getting into it, just kind of knowing some of these stories. And it's really good for you and your families and for little kiddos and other things like that. If you just kind of want to read it to them, but you're not trying to get any deeper, right? And so that is Norse Gods and Giants by Dolores. It has really good art in it. And it tells some really phenomenal stories that you can share with your friends, share with your families, and they're all very short, very brief, but it gives adequate information so that you can kind of walk away knowing some of the mythology. It's a really good book that I like to read to my kids for like a bedtime story, things like that. I'm just not entirely sure where we can get it. I'll look into that a bit more so that I can share that with you guys. But then moving on, I'm sure that most authors of Norse mythology have something that a beginner can ingest and will be good for a beginner. But Neil Gaiman is one of my favorite authors, not just for like Norse mythology or anything like that, but he wrote things like Coraline. He wrote things like Mirror Mask with Jim Henson. He wrote things like American Gods. So he's a fictional author, but he has this work here, Neil Gaiman's Norse Mythology. Again, this is just a really good book to just kind of get your eyes on Norse mythology. It's not a history book. It's not source material. It is Neil Gaiman's retelling of Norse mythology. But I think it's great, especially if you're just now beginning. This is a book that you can go and get on Spotify. I think it's free. I could be wrong about that, but it's an audio book. You can find it anywhere that you're wanting to listen to audiobooks. Or you can go pick this up from a local library, buy it off of Amazon for maybe like $20. I don't know. But very good source material for you to begin with. Then next, I have Tales of Norse Mythology by Kiri. Kiri is actually a husband and wife combo, but they authored this book. It's much like Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, but this was written in the Victorian era. It also has a lot of really good art that I like, and is kind of written in the Victorian style. So it's kind of a timepiece, but again, it's really good mythology. Also, again, though, it's not source material. We'll talk about source material right now, though. But any book that calls itself Norse mythology, take it with a grain of salt. Know that it's not source material. It is just somebody's telling of the stories. For example, I could write a book on Norse mythology. My friend Corey here, I imagine, could write a book on Norse mythology. We know a lot about the sagas. We know a lot about the stories. With that being said, I am not a historian. Corey is not a historian. But we can retell the stories to you in a way that would have been told around a campfire. And that's kind of what those first 3 books are about. They are about telling the stories that are our sagas in a way that anybody can ingest them. But now, moving into the next thing that you would want to get into after reading a little bit of Norse mythology and things like that, the Havamal. Okay, so I have the pocket Havamal, which I keep in my pocket everywhere I go for the most part, and the study Havamal. I actually just picked this up the other day, so I haven't really worked in it yet or anything like that, but I picked it up because I wanted to look through it and see what it's like. Dalton, I would love that. I will read any of these books around a campfire to any of you. I would love to do that. Definitely just get some food going, maybe a little drink for anybody that has a drink, maybe a little smoke for anybody that has a smoke, and we sit around a campfire and we read some of these stories. We can pass the book around. You can suggest a story that you want to hear about. I don't care. I would love to do that. That sounds great, Dalton. But again, so the study Havamal, I picked this up because I wanted to go through it and I wanted to kind of see kind of how it's translated and if it would be usable for you guys. So the Havamal is words from the High One. That is words from Odin. So that's all this is. This is just Odin telling us how to live, what life should look like, what death should look like. And the study Havamal is brilliant because it has 3 or 4 different translations and is written in the original tongue. So you can look at the original tongue, you can read the 3 different translations, and then you can interpret it yourself. And on the following page, you have room for notes. So, for example, if we were to read stanza 69 here. Thorpe translates it to, no man lacks everything, although his health be bad. One in his sons is happy, one in abundant wealth, one in his good works. So you read the interpretation and you interpret it yourself. What do I think about that? What does that mean to me? And then put it in the notes. And that way you can come back in the future too. And then so you read stanza 69 and you say, well, that's not what that means to me anymore. It means something else. But the Have 'em All, find your version of the Have 'em All. There's a lot of them out there, but you just need to fact check to make sure that it's from a good source material, not just some random kook that thinks he's translating things for you, okay? So the Have 'em All, that's going to teach you how to live as a heathen through Odin's words. Next, we're going to go into the building blocks and the foundation of what is, regardless of what kindred, what circle you're a part of, anything like that. The Have 'em All is included in this topic as well. But this is the foundation to what all of us know and understand. Okay? And that is going to be your Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda. And so, my favorite authors and the most notorious authors of this subject is Caroline Larrington, wrote the Poetic Edda, and Jackson Crawford. And I just picked this up the other day. This is the Poetic Edda by Jackson Crawford, but this is the second edition and it's expanded. So I'm actually excited to really get into that. Which I had the first edition of this. Sadly, in my life, I've been robbed. My stuff has been burnt. I've lost everything countless times, and so I'm constantly finding myself rebuilding my life. But the last decade has been pretty stable, and so I'm rebuilding everything I've got going on. We just moved into this house not too long ago, so we'll be getting into a lot more. But you have the Poetic Edda by Larrington, and you have the Poetic Edda by Jackson Crawford. Those are the two Poetic Eddas that I will reference to all night and day. And then the Prose Edda, Tales from Norse Mythology by Snorri Sturluson. Love his work, but you have to also take this with a grain of salt. He was a Christian and comes from a Christian background, and so there are certain things about Snorri that we just have to be careful with and double check and take with a grain of salt, like I said. But again, the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, those are two books. You guys can go and get those off of Amazon, probably pick them up from some local bookstores or something like that. I do know that Penguin Classics, it's a publishing company. They usually hold a lot of these books as well. But then we're going to get into A Practical Heathen's Guide to Asatru. Okay, this is one of my favorite books. This is going to bridge the gap between the ancients and the ancient traditions and modern times. How can we use heathenry and Asatru in a modern lens? And this book kind of helps us get there. That's A Practical Heathen's Guide to Asatru by Patricia M. Lafiolive. Really good book here. I have a lot of other books I'd like to suggest and things like that. And we have a long list of sagas that we need to get into as well. But to start off with, I would suggest the saga of the Volsungs as my first to read if I was recommending reading for you guys. So all these books that I just shared with you guys here, most of them you guys can get off of Amazon, places like that. And this is really good foundational material. It's going to teach you the mythologies. It's going to teach you what heathenry looks like and how to apply it to your day-to-day life, your worldview, and other things like that. I'll get a post going. We'll talk about monthly reading, things like that. But I think that's all I've got for now. I think it turned into a little bit of a long-winded video tonight. But I appreciate all of you that were here. I appreciate everybody that had to go early, anything like that. I just thank all of you guys for being here. I appreciate you guys just giving me this platform to be able to share this with you. And I hope that you guys take everything that I had to say tonight and it helped you. It taught you something new. And it gave you resources and materials so that you can go out after tonight and build off of what we talked about, and that you can start to get onto the same page and can start to kind of provide a little bit of information onto the topic as well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below after the video or anything like that. Feel free to ask me questions privately as well. If you need to DM me, ask me anything. I am your guys' Gothy, whether you want to see it like that or not. If you just want to see me as your buddy Isaac, who's just sharing information, I have no problem with that. But as a Gothy, I want to make myself disposable to all of you guys, accessible to all of you guys, and allow you guys to be able to bounce information off of me, bounce ideas off of me, thoughts, concerns, and we can grow this information and this kindred together. So, from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of the well of the Nine Realms Hearth, I appreciate all of you guys for being here tonight. And again, drop your comments below. Tell me what spirits and creatures you think are inhabiting your lives and how it's important to you and how it might be important to us. So again, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for giving me the time. And hail all of you, hail the Azir, hail the Vanir, and hail our local community, hail Spokane. Any birthday traditions? Well, yeah, so for example, I mean, you could do like a birthday bloat, which is something we already kind of do. It's celebrating you and your birthday and feasting and gathering a community around. That is kind of what a bloat is. You know what I mean, Dalton? Is a gathering of community and feasting and celebrating something. So we already kind of incorporate this in our day-to-day lives without even realizing it. But gathering together for a birthday party or a wedding anniversary or anything like that, these can become, if not already, a part of your heathen traditions. You would just want to go about it and maybe a little bit of a different aspect if you wanted to make it more of a Norse Germanic tradition as opposed to just like, oh, it's Dalton's birthday tomorrow. You could be like, no, it's going to be Dalton's birthday bloat. And we'll talk about how to set up bloats and symbols as we go on. That's actually going to be something that I talk about before Thora bloat. I'm going to have a little video for us, and we're going to talk about what like bloats look like, how to form a bloat, and like what a bloat etiquette looks like, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, things like that. So you'll be able to incorporate that information into any birthday tradition that you want going forward with you and your family, Dalton. So, yeah, and thank you for dropping that right there at the end. But anyways, I think my dinner's cold. I love all of you guys. I appreciate you guys sitting here with me through this. And for anybody that missed it, obviously go back, watch the whole video, catch up, and leave your comments. Thank you guys.